everybody has a good looking pro forma right now. And always, nobody's going to show you a pro forma performance where you're losing money. So I think you have to use a little bit of logic and then also talking with and learning from people who have more experience and just say, build a relationship with someone who has a lot of experience and no financial interest in a particular asset.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Are you ready to start investing in real estate today but don't know where to start? Sometimes investing can seem way too complicated, but it actually couldn't be any easier than with homeinvest.com. You know the co-founder and my friend Nate Armstrong. He appeared on episode 20, and if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it, episode number 20. Home Invest is a company that allows you to invest in turnkey real estate. Their goal is to build powerful investment tools that make real estate investing accessible to everyone. They have contractors and property managers available for you with the click of your mouse. While other real estate agents can only offer a property, Home Invest brings you a full turnkey package that allows you to diversify your investments, earn passive income, and start building equity in properties. Their simple, intuitive design allows newcomers and experienced investors alike to hit the ground running and to be able to choose the properties when they want and where they want. View easy to understand charts and data to allow you to buy in only a few clicks or just a simple phone call. With Home Invest, you'll be building your portfolio as quickly or as slowly as you would like. And right now, Home Invest is giving our listeners, Pillar of Wealth Creation listeners, a free course on how to finally win in real estate investing. So go to homeinvest.com/pillars. That's homeinvest.com/pillars to claim your free course today. Hey, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me is Taylor Loht. And Taylor is a high-level real estate investor, successful businessman. He's from Richmond, Virginia. And with that, I'll let you tell our listeners a little bit more about your background, what you've got going on right now. And that's it.
Thanks, Todd. That's a great intro. I appreciate that. I am a multifamily real estate investor. My background is in engineering and sales. Got my bachelor's degree a number of years ago. I'm getting older as we speak. And I host a meetup here in Richmond, Virginia, where I live, for multifamily real estate investors as we speak. October's meeting was last night, and it was a great hit, and that's been an interesting learning process hosting that. And I also host a podcast, Passive Wealth Strategies for Busy Professionals, which I'd love to have you on, and I'd certainly appreciate if everyone would check out.
Yeah, awesome. And you are a busy professional because you still have a regular job. So tell me, how are you kind of working your regular job and doing the real estate, the multifamily, the podcast, and the meetup? What are you doing to make that all happen and still remain sane?
That's a good question. You and I, the listeners may or may not know that you and I have both done coaching with Trevor McGregor, and I'm sure they don't know that about me. But I would say balancing all of these irons that I have in the fire, first it starts with psychology. It starts with knowing that you can do it and developing the mental models and the processes to just keep plugging away and keep gunning for success. And that's something that I learned from Trevor. And I would say I was honestly very skeptical of that. I'm a skeptical guy, skeptical person. But then once I started learning from him about how to approach all of these things mentally, it became a lot easier to have long days. So just to give examples, and I would say I also have the benefit. I'm not married. I don't have any kids, so that helps quite a bit as well. But the mentality is number one, and then setting up systems. So I have virtual assistants that work for me, and then just long days on my own. Waking up early. I also I'm really passionate. I didn't say before. I'm very passionate about Brazilian jiu-jitsu. That's my fitness habit and hobby, and I'd highly recommend everyone go check it out. But the benefit there is it's very meditative. It's a good fitness hobby as well, and it really helps get me in the mindset of, okay, I'm going to go conquer the world. When you get up early in the morning and go to a 6 a.m. Jiu-jitsu class and work really hard right away, you're just ready to tackle the day, and most people haven't even woken up yet, and you've already been training for an hour doing jujitsu. So I'd say, to really sum it up, it's the psychology of success and being able to just keep plugging away is number one. And then the mechanics of it are hiring people to work for you, and then just putting in the time, honestly, and learning from others.
So this is a selfish question because I've got a few people who work for me. I've got some assistants. I've got others that kind of either I partner with or help me out. But I've never hired a VA. How do you find a VA that you can trust, and then give this work when they're not right there next to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, going back to learning from others, this is a skill that I started learning, and I honestly am still learning it because I think it's a continuous learning process. But I started learning this from first Vinny Chopra, who the listeners might be aware of, multifamily investor. Interviewed him on my podcast, and he taught me about this. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, he's about to have $500 million in assets under management, and he still personally hires VAs for between $4 to $10 an hour to complete his tasks. And then I learned this from Dan Handford as well, who the listeners may know. It's a matter of experimenting and, at least initially, turning everything into a system that can be executed by anyone. So just to give an example, so I mentioned I have a podcast, Passive Wealth Strategies for Busy Professionals, and I have a VA that helps me book those guests and stay in contact with them. Pay him $4 an hour, and he's worth every stinking penny. Excuse me, every stinking penny. He gets done in 2 hours. Honestly, what I get done in an entire weekend sending these emails, because I am not good at sitting down and just doing a rote task over and over again. So I turn this into a system where I provide him a list of names, which I've gotten from somewhere. I have a number of sources, which are pretty easy to find. He tracks them down. VAs can be very good at finding email addresses, contact information, and then he sends them a form email that he adds a little bit of information to, not much, and just moves on to the next one. He logs what he's doing and keeps going. So that has saved me days and days and days and days and days of time for $4 an hour. And he lives in Pakistan. It feels good too to work with someone from the other side of the world. So to really sum it up, it's especially with simple tasks, turn it into a system, record it on your computer using Screencast-O-Matic. There's a number of programs you can use to just record the feed on your computer. And then you can turn it into bullet points and just try them out. Honestly, once you turn it into that, this is something I learned from Dan Hanford, is just give it a shot. Hire Put out a post on upwork.com, for example, describe the task, provide the video, and hire 3 or 4 of them. And depending on what the task, maybe it's writing a blog for $20. So 3 or 4 of them, $60 to $80 plus a minor fee from Upwork, and you're going to get 4 blogs. Some of them are going to stink. Most of them are going to stink, but you might find that one gem And that person is going to save you a ton of time because if they're, say, writing a blog for your podcast, well, to me, for me personally, I don't want to sit and listen to my voice over and over and over and over again and write a blog. Whereas if I hire someone to do it, and it's going to take me hours to do it too, because I'm just not effective doing that particular task. If I hire someone for $20 and they can do a task for in any amount of time, and I don't care how long it takes them, but a task that would take me 2 to 3 hours for $20, that's a fantastic deal. And I think everyone out there who's trying to be more effective should really just give it a shot is the main answer. Come up with a super simple system, low investment, and just give it a shot. And you're going to learn things throughout the way. I mean, I'm continually learning things about working with my VAs. I think setting expectations is very important. You're going to find corner cutters. Honestly, we all cut corners. We're all guilty of it, including me. And the VAs are no different. And it has that extra step of removal because they're paying them $4 an hour. I mean, honestly, it's not a lot of money, or but $8 an hour, something like that. They don't know you and they just want the money. And that's fine. I understand that. But I just encourage you to think of a task, systematize it, and then give it a go. And that's how you're going to learn to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean that sounds extremely useful. I mean, you just gave, a couple examples on the podcast and writing a blog, based on a podcast or whatever it is. Uh, those are really easy things for you to hand off and save a lot of time, because every little thing, right now I'm making kind of actually just doing it, making a list of, how many, what would my week look like? What are the certain things? Because I've got several businesses, and how many hours do I want to spend on it? And then as I go through this, I'm like, wow, if I want to step up and spend a couple more hours, I'm going to all of a sudden be working, 80 hours, 100 hours a week pretty easily. And it's just not possible. So you got to find the systems, like you said, in order to do it. And I think as a busy professional like you are, that's vitally important if you want to do anything other than your job.
Absolutely. And I would say the one that there really it was a switch that flipped in my mind, honestly, when I first hired the first VA to send emails to people. And I had done this process, like I said, for literally full weekends. All I would do, I would wake up, of course, I do jujitsu class, and then I come back to my home office and just work sending these emails all weekend. And I hired Usman, his name's Usman, for 2 hours. I just turned it into a system, hired him for 2 hours for $4 an hour, and I was blown away. Like I said, he got more done in 2 hours than I got done in the entire weekend. And that might be a comment on my level of focus and work ethic, but it really the important thing is to me was seeing that it's possible and I can multiply the number of hours I have in a day just by devoting even a small amount of resources to outsourcing many of these tasks that are just cookie cutter churn and burn.
Well, and Taylor too, if you're not passionate about it, it probably doesn't. It's difficult to focus on something that you have, very little interest in doing. And if you just don't want to send all these emails out, you're not going to focus. It's not first on your list.
Absolutely. I mean, it's easy. I'm I'm very into meditation as well, and it's given me more of an insight into how so easily distracted I am personally. I can't say that about everyone, but I'm a distraction machine. So if I can make things easier on myself, and especially those cookie cutter tasks, hand them off to someone else where I'm very prone, like I said, to distraction and getting derailed. Whereas if I hire someone else, now I don't have that risk. He's going to handle it and I can focus on higher value tasks. Say, for example, hiring more VAs to like write my blogs or anything. Go live my life.
Yeah.
I think that's underrated too. We don't need to just hire VAs so that we can always increase our productivity necessarily and just keep working on our business. I mean, I think a case to be made to going outside and, being in the sun while it's nice out or something like that, and enjoying your life. I think that's highly valuable.
Yeah. There was a podcast I was listening to recently. It was EO Fire with John Lee Dumas, and they were I think that was who it was, and they were talking about you know the lack of being in the sun. Like, so many people just sit in their offices all day, and they like never go outside, and they get this vitamin D deficiency, and it's actually how much the sun does good for your body. So you just saying that kind of reminded me about that. And it's so easy to get caught up though, and working all these hours where we don't focus on, getting up at 6 a.m., doing the jujitsu and going outside and enjoying ourselves and all that kind of stuff. So good stuff. I want to go back now. You mentioned you're a multifamily guy. What first, why uh, did you decide to do something beyond your just regular 9 to 5? And explain. I guess first let's just say why. Why did you decide you're going to do something beyond the 9 to 5?
That's a great question. I think it's very important. And going back to, both of us having worked with Trevor, the why is so important. So just to give folks a little bit more information about me, as we speak, I'm 29 years old and I went to University of Delaware. So as I was going to university, I graduated high school in 2007. I mean, we were in the thick of the economic crisis at that time. And my parents are both W-2 earners. I don't come from a background of investors, and that's not a good thing, not a bad thing. It just is what it is. And through college, I'm very fortunate. My parents paid for me to go to college, and I graduated from a good program to make sure to take advantage of that. But through college, I watched my parents struggle to spend enough hours at their work just so they could keep their jobs. My dad was working probably literally north of 100 hours a week, and
Wow.
the company that he worked at, I won't say the name, the prominent insurer, they had their employees of groups typically 6 to 10. And then for every period of time, it was either a quarter or a half every year, they would rank the teams of employees and fire the bottom one and just
Hmm.
bring somebody new in. They look at their employees as disposable. And the
Wow.
impact that it had on me was realizing that I need multiple streams of income. I need to be ready to retire when I want to. And then furthermore, they're in their 50s, so they've got many years ahead of them. But someday I'm gonna be in my 40s and 50s, and in a way, I'm looking forward to the responsibility of taking care of them, but I know I need to be financially prepared, and compound interest is a wonderful thing. So I figure I get started early in my, early to mid 20s and make the right moves, and I will be more than ready early enough to take care of them when I do have children, take care of them. So, you know, definitely I've thought a lot about why I do what I do.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, and I think actually that's maybe a blessing for a lot of people that are your age. Is they watched this struggle during a very difficult time for a lot of families. They either watched their parents struggle, or they watched some their friends' parents struggle. They watched aunts and uncles, whatever. They watched people they know struggle through that time. And I feel like right now, being an entrepreneur, investing in real estate and investing overall is, at least from what I can see and hear, there's a lot more younger people doing it than it seems like ever was before. When I look at the real estate industry, I see it as a couple generations that are just completely almost missed. It seems like a lot of people that are between 25 and 35 invest, and then the rest of them are 65 to, you know, 85 right now. And it seems like everybody in between just like they didn't invest. And I don't know exactly why. Maybe times were just good for too long. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, it was great that you were able to look at that and really think about it. Too many people also don't make that decision or don't, move forward. They just pray and hope it doesn't happen to them, which isn't really an answer. Um, Take us through the first deal. What was it? What was your first deal? And what are you doing right now?
So yeah, my first deal was actually as a limited partner. That's how I got started. I spent a few years, not years, probably months, looking at single families in my area, touring them, making offers, and to me, the numbers just didn't make sense. I pretty quickly realized that I'm going to be in my 60s until I've accumulated enough properties to replace my income or to retire on. I met a number of flippers going to local RIAs and everything, and just realized that's not for me. Through family, we knew a few flippers that busted out during the recession, and once I learned more about the debt structure there, I decided that's just not for me. It's too short term, and I don't see any wealth creation there. Flipping to me seems like just a job, and after meeting many flippers, that's definitely true. So okay, so what did I do from there? I decided I don't want to do multifamily. It's going to take too long. I don't want to flip. I don't want to wholesale because the whole no money down, blah, 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 that doesn't appeal to me. I think you never get something for nothing. And wholesaling is definitely not something for nothing, but it's just a way to me, it seemed like a way to generate some cash flow, but it's really just another job. You're not building pipelines. You're still carrying buckets, to borrow Robert Kiyosaki's analogy. So I spent time going to apartment and syndication conferences, real estate guys. Obviously, I've been to Joe Fairless's a few times, and as a non-accredited, brand new investor, becoming an LP in a deal is not exactly easy because you need to find the syndicators. If you're looking for a good syndicator, they're going to be pretty scrupulous about whose money they take, whose non-accredited money they take, especially. They're going to be pretty careful about that. So developing relationships with syndicators, learning more about how to analyze deals, specifically by working with Joe Fairless, and I still am. Uh, got that deal flow going and eventually found some properties I wanted to invest in as an LP. As we speak, we're finally getting ready to exit some of those, and that's been an interesting lesson learned. But it was a total of 454 units in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're going to make a nice return on those. And fortunately, like I said, through my upbringing, I was always taught to be frugal and save money. And I think that's a good lesson to learn, especially when you're dependent on a paycheck. So I had plenty of money saved to invest, and I had been putting money in uh, self-directed IRA and invested that way. So that was the first deal I invested in. And then fast forward to today, I'm talking with brokers. I'm currently GPing a deal in Texas. I'm in the middle of it at the moment. It's a 506B, so I can't talk about it too specifically, but that's been it's been a very interesting uh, process. And like I said, I built my meetup here in Richmond, and I host a podcast. So both of those have been very integral in first the meetup, building a base of potential investors to talk to about this deal, and additionally talking to friends and family just about what I'm doing and what I'm investing in, and then hosting the podcast. It's a for those out there, it's a great opportunity to have long form, in depth conversations with almost anybody you want. Honestly, most power players, especially in real estate, but most people in any industry, they're out there, they're selling themselves, especially if they're entrepreneurial, they started their own business. They're happy to have a half an hour to an hour long conversation with you on a microphone, and it's a great way to build a relationship with a number of uh, accomplished, in my case, apartment syndicators. So that's how my involvement with this particular deal came about, was developing relationships with one particular well accomplished apartment syndicator by first getting to know him through my podcast and then just keeping in touch over time.
Cool. What you mentioned lessons learned on that syndication. What are some lessons learned that if I have listeners that are maybe thinking of, I mean, this could apply to anybody thinking of they want to become that sponsor, or they want to invest as an LP. What are some lessons that learned that maybe you can pass on?
Yeah. So as an LP, so I can't be too specific,
Yeah,
but
that's
the it's alleged that the initial property manager embezzled a substantial amount of money from us, and that was discovered after the we had owned the properties for a few months, and ultimately, that impacted the cash flow. It seriously impacted the performance of the property, and the lesson that I learned as someone going from being an LP to now getting on the GP side was how to communicate problems like this to investors. And
mm,
unfortunately, I learned this through a bad example. In my opinion, we were not communicated with well. We were given very lax details, and the communication was not proactive. Whenever there was some development or there was an expected development, say maybe 2 months, we expect to have some update on this situation. So great, I set something in my calendar, follow up and make sure, I get information in 2 months. So 2 months comes by, crickets, don't hear anything. So I sent him an email. When there was an update, we just weren't proactively informed about the update. So me, as an LP, I have a pretty iron stomach for frothiness and poor performance of an investment. I'm pretty patient, and something like this, I can handle. It's not that big of a deal. We didn't lose the asset, so life's going to go on. Everybody's still going to make money. There was just a hiccup, but it would have helped me have a better feeling that the properties are being given the an appropriate amount of attention, and this matter is being taken seriously, and it would help me be more comfortable that we're not at risk of losing the asset, or if we got a new property manager, that the new property manager is doing well. So it's all those combinations of my experience as an LP through some rough waters and how it was handled by the GP not living up to my expectations as an LP. So as I get into the GP side, I want to make sure to learn from that example and communicate proactively and effectively, good and bad things. Bad things much more important to communicate proactively.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. If you're not communicating with your investors, they're going to be confused. They're going to be worried about where their money's going and what's happening. So if you're not able to send that communication at least as frequently as you had promised, there's going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. How often did they, obviously without going into who they are, but how often did they say they were going to communicate versus how often would you have liked them to communicate?
At the front, we were told we would receive monthly communications as far as the financials go. And historically, I would say we probably did receive it about that frequently. There might have been a couple months there where, things were kind of in a rough patch where it slowed down a little bit. But in that case, it's a matter of the quality of communication and what's actually included. Because if there are particular um, events going on and that monthly communication doesn't include any information clearly laid out or specifically related to some of the headaches going on, well, then that obviously doesn't count toward a communication about the headaches that are going on, even though we receive the financials, if that makes sense. So, say
Sure.
the frequency was held up, but I
The d
consider it that it wasn't held up because critical information was missing.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they communicated with you, but they just didn't communicate essentially properly. They needed to add a lot more detail and diligence to their communication so that you guys would understand really what's going on with the property, likely why you're not receiving distributions or maybe as heavy of distributions as what you otherwise would have expected. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, I want to interrupt this episode real quick to talk to you about Nate Armstrong, our sponsor, Nate Armstrong. He's with homeinvest.com, and you want to get to know Nate. So go to homeinvest.com and just connect with Nate, talk to him, learn about his operation, what he's got going on. He's a turnkey provider, and it may not be right for you, but it could be the perfect fit. So it doesn't hurt. It's a free call, consultation just to figure out, what they do, what they have to offer. And worst case is you're going to meet a great person who's really well educated in real estate. He's done a ton of different real estate strategies and probably is going to teach you a little bit, even on a short conversation with him. So go to homeinvest.com and connect with Nate's company. You're definitely not going to be disappointed. It's worth it. So thanks. And we'll get back to our show. And now you're raising currently for a deal, multifamily, you said in Texas. Why Texas? And, uh, and then why did you decide to go with larger multifamily and do the syndication?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I mean, Texas, obviously, it's a growing state, and most of the markets are exploding. It's very business friendly. It's good to landlords. So all the positive things about Texas. Personally, I think Dallas is fine. I'm just not interested in Dallas because I think, from my perspective, there's just too much attention in Dallas right now. But it's just my opinion. As far as larger multifamily versus smaller multifamily goes, I mean, after it's a combination of studying the performance of these assets and really just getting to know and talking with people who have a lot more experience in this than I do. And some of them have been through a few market cycles, and talking with them about the various advantages and disadvantages of buying, say, a 30 unit multifamily versus 100 versus 200 plus units. And what do you get out of all of those kind of unit ranges? So the reason I like much larger is the economies of scale can obviously pay for property management, and from my perspective, as you get into 200 units plus, you get a lot more pull potentially with property managers. So I'll see deals from syndicators that I know personally that they might be syndicating a 50 unit property in some particular secondary or tertiary market, and the numbers might look fine, but anybody can make numbers look fine on a pro forma. Kind of the soft facts about the property are, okay, none of the GPs live in this market or even within a 3 hour flight of the market. So they're probably not going to go there that much. None of the GPs own any other property. in this market. So they don't have as much pull or command with the property manager as they might if they had already owned properties in the market. So when I'm looking at deals, if I see that 50 unit, nobody owns anything in the area and nobody lives close to it, so they're not going to be just dropping in and maybe secret shopping it and finding out how the management is performing. That just kind of it concerns me from a risk standpoint that, okay, how motivated will this particular property manager be to perform up to expectations? Number one, how well will the GPs be able to ensure that that's happening? Because at a 50 unit property, there probably isn't a whole lot of cash flow to pay to fly a GP there every month or two. So they're probably not really going to visit the property that much. And if it's in a smaller market, how many options for property managers do we really have? And that gets back to the problem of how motivated will, say, if we have to replace the original property manager, how motivated will the new property manager be to be any better? So in my mind, that makes, say, if 100 units down, a lot weaker. And think once you start getting into 200 units plus, you get a lot more attention from the property manager. And then with the other GPs, like I said, I think about, does the GP own any other property in the area? Do they have other properties under management by the property management company, or the property management company that's planned? So it's kind of all of those things related to the property, because again, everybody has a good looking pro forma right now, and always nobody's going to show you a pro forma performance where you're losing money. So I think you have to use a little bit of logic, and then also talking with and learning from people who have more experience, and just say, build a relationship with someone who has a lot of experience and no financial interest in a particular asset either way. And just call them and ask them, if you have a good relationship with them, hey, what are your thoughts about this deal? I'm thinking about maybe being a GP on it, or I'm thinking about investing passively. What do you think? I'm not gonna hold you to your opinion either way, but would you invest in this? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I think the underlying reasons why are the most important information there.
Sure. Um, what's a big mistake that you've made, and how did you learn from it?
Big mistake that I made, definitely not doing things faster. Uh, Starting my podcast, like I said, working with Joe Fairless, he's encourages us to build thought leadership platforms. And this is not a secret. He's very much on the record with this, but build thought leadership platforms, build meetups in our area. And I just waited way too long to pull the trigger on it. Both the podcast and the meetup. Should have done it a year, 2 years before I did it, but so either didn't have the idea, or still going back to what we've both learned from Trevor, that having limiting beliefs about, say, with the podcast, how am I going to get guests, or how am I going to come up with content, or is anybody going to want to listen? Just have to give it a shot. If you have quality content, people will want to listen, people will want to be on it. And with the meetup, it's a hustle, it's a lot of work, but if you build a quality meetup and you market it well, people will come. So just taking action, honestly.
Yeah, and that was my question: is why is anybody going to want to listen to me? There's all these other podcasts out there. They've been out there forever. Why do people want to listen to me? And that is a valid question. But like you said, if you produce good content, people will listen. You might not become, a bigger pockets, or a podcast that gets, hundreds of thousands of listeners, but you get your own small amount of listeners, and providing quality content. And like you said, you're becoming a thought leader in the industry, which provides a lot of credibility.
Absolutely. And The bigger pockets guys were not the bigger pockets guys of today when they got started. They
Right.
were small ones too. And you're also not going to become the next bigger pockets guy if you never try.
Yep.
So just giving it a shot, learn something along the way. If I don't, it's who's ever brand. Change your format if you want. Change your idea. Pivot a little bit. Experiment with it, but not taking action is the biggest problem, really.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you need to have a podcast or a YouTube channel or a blog, but you have to figure out what works for you. How are you going to get your content, your information, your ideas out there, and then you know, and then stick with that and go with it. I think there's a lot of people that are doing it different ways that are very successful. There's some successful, extremely successful bloggers that are doing really well, and podcasters and YouTube guys and gals, and so yeah, just pick your medium, decide what works for you, and go with it.
Yeah, and if you're interested in starting a podcast just to keep on that, but you hate hearing your voice, you get used to it, honestly.
um, so what are your goals moving forward? Where do you see yourself in, let's call it, 5 years?
5 years, so I keep going back to Trevor, but developing working with him, I developed a daily affirmations and incantations and plans and everything, and a routine related to goal setting. So one of my goals, 5 years, that I say to myself every morning is to take my parents on a vacation to Europe because they'd never been, paid for out of the cash flows from my real estate investing business. I've been out of the country a ton of times. They never have. And I think it would be a fun thing to do and something that would mean a lot to me to give to them.
That's awesome. Love it. Um, what's a favorite book that you've either read within the last year or so, or that you're reading right now?
So a big one for me most recently, I mean, the year criteria is important because otherwise I would have said Rich Dad Poor Dad or the E Myth, but I'm sure you've gotten that answer 1,000 times. Uh, Most recently, definitely Miracle Morning. I am not a morning person, quote unquote. I love to sleep in as much as I want, but really taking the steps that Hal recommends in the book to improve your mornings and just really take control of them, win the morning, win the day, all that. That's been very helpful. It's a process. It's it's no pun intended, but it's not overnight that you become a morning person. But I think that book really shifted my mentality about the meaning behind getting up early, really kicking butt, and even the first 15 minutes of the morning and what that means for your mental state and your performance throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, what what does morning really mean? Can I just sleep until 7 a.m.? And is that morning or? um, last question before we wrap up. What are your three pillars of wealth creation?
Long term vision, cash flow, and leverage.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah. Straight out of any real estate investing books. But honestly, I think that hit a lot of people in the most recent recession. Not having cash flow, not having leverage, obviously kills your return. Leverage is a great way to increase your return. And then, yeah, that long term vision. I mean, I'm in it for the long run here. I don't need to get rich tomorrow. And in my opinion, that frees you up to experiment a little bit more, try new things, and learn a lot along the way.
Yeah, and at the same time, leverage. Not having leverage hurts, and over leveraging can also hurt as
Absolutely.
well. I think a few people learned that lesson too.
Yeah,
Very last question. How do our listeners get in touch with you? How do they find your podcast?
I love that question. The podcast is Passive Wealth Strategies for Busy Professionals, which you can find on YouTube, or not YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, wherever your fine podcasts are sold. We're launching that in November, so really excited about that. And you can get in touch with me through that. Just go to passivewealthstrategy.com and fill out the contact us form. Email address is Taylor, Taylor, at passivewealthstrategy.com.
Awesome. Well, Taylor, appreciate you being on the show, taking time out of your day. And we'll chat with you soon, my friend.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Hey, special thanks to Taylor for joining us on the show. Appreciate him taking time out of his day and give us a ton of value. So again, thanks a lot for him joining us. And a couple things I took from the episode. First of all, he talks about two things that kind of relate to each other: setting up systems and also using leverage. And he talks particularly about using VAs and how to hire them, and really gave us some good ideas on how do we use those VAs to, again, help us with our systems and help us with our leverage. The other thing he talked about, which I think was great, was long-term vision. It's so easy to get caught up on the day to day. Sometimes we forget our long term vision, what we really are striving for. And I heard it said the other day, I think it's so true. Oftentimes we overestimate what we can do in a short period of time, but we underestimate what we can do in a long period of time. So, again, long term vision, setting up systems, and leverage. Great stuff from Taylor. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who are our listeners, and I'd love to have you subscribe if you haven't already. Go on to iTunes or wherever you're listening, subscribe, and then give us a rating and review if you haven't done so. If you have done so, really appreciate that. It just helps us grow our show and continue to get good, strong people to of these great interviews with guests like Taylor. So those reviews are helpful. Then also go on to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth Facebook page, and give us some comments. Let us know what we can do to give you more value. Do you have any certain questions you want us to answer? Do you have certain guests that you want us to try to highlight and bring on the show? So any comments that you want to make to us, any communication you want to make, go right there to Pillars of Wealth on Facebook, and that would be fantastic as well. I am Todd Dexheimer, signing out. Make every day a Saturday. Are you ready to start investing in real estate today but don't know where to start? Sometimes investing can seem way too complicated, but it actually couldn't be any easier than with homeinvest.com. You know the co-founder and my friend Nate Armstrong. He appeared on episode 20, and if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it, episode number 20. Home Invest is a company that allows you to invest in turnkey real estate. Their goal is to build powerful investment tools that make real estate investing accessible to everyone. They have contractors and property managers available for you with the click of your mouse. While other real estate agents can only offer a property, Home Invest brings you a full turnkey package that allows you to diversify your investments, earn passive income, and start building equity in properties. Their simple, intuitive design allows newcomers and experienced investors alike to hit the ground running and to be able to choose the properties when they want and where they want. View easy to understand charts and data to allow you to buy in only a few clicks or just a simple phone call. With Home Invest, you'll be building your portfolio as quickly or as slowly as you would like. And right now, Home Invest is giving our listeners, Pillar of Wealth Creation listeners, a free course on how to finally win in real estate investing. So go to homeinvest.com/pillars. That's homeinvest.com/pillars to claim your free course today.